And also on Facebook Live this morning. So good morning to all of you guys joining us out there from around wherever. You can watch us all over the world this morning. I'm your host, Colin Worthington. Again, the show is sponsored by Tanner Health System. The Bowdon Area Historical Society, they're going to open up a brand new museum next Tuesday. It's going to be open to the public. We brought in 3 young people here to talk about that, all with the Bowdon Area Historical Society. We have the Rowells, Judy and Jim, and Tom Upchurch is president of this Area Historical Society.
That's correct.
And you guys are going to tell us all about this museum. Let's start off with putting the Historical Society together. It's been around since the mid-'80s, right?
Correct.
And
started about 1985.
And how did that happen? Did Judy and Jim start that?
No, Judy and Jim didn't start that at all. We were come latelys on that. Jim's mother was instrumental in that.
Mm. And how, as far as membership and the interest, how has that grown over the last 30 years?
We have about 40 to 50 people that come to our regular Historical Society meetings, which is the second Tuesday evening in each month. We have good programs generally featuring our local history or some sort of historical significance to the program.
As I get older, it's easier for me to jump on the bandwagon and pick on the kids. Do they show a lot of interest in Bowdon history? Are they want to be part of this? And maybe not the teenagers, but kids in their 20s and 30s.
We have a little bit of interest. Ordinarily, it's older people that come to our meetings, but we're attracting some young folks, and we hope when the museum opens, we'll have school children that'll be able to attend and look at our history, our local history.
And understand how important that is to keep that going.
One of the things that we find with a 20 to 30 year group is that they're busy raising families and working, and they'd like to, but they really don't have time
to do it. Sure. Well, let's talk about the museum. How did this idea? I'm sure the idea has been brewing forever, because I understand that you guys have been collecting.
Well, these two people, Jim and Judy Rowell, have really collected a lot of artifacts of our history of Bowdon and the Bowdon area, and those things have been stored all around. We've been collecting those for some period of time. In fact, they've worked on this for years. But this is an opportunity to get it all out where the public can see it. And our museum will have permanent exhibits of different parts of our history that I think will be interesting. And I want them, since they've are the ones that have collected this, to tell us what those exhibits will be.
Well, tell us about the collecting process first, because, I imagine how are you getting these items? Are there people approaching you guys? Have you had to go ask? I know last year we actually ran a story for you guys because you were looking for...
Eisenhower jacket.
Right, the Eisenhower jacket, right. And so I'm
works
assuming
both
something like
ways.
that.
We have many people who come to us and say, we found this in Mama's attic, and would you like to have it? And we have, of course, the people that are our age and are beginning to think about what they have, or saying, I don't think my children are going to be interested in this. So we get things that way, and then we ask for some things like the Eisenhower jacket. Jim did the military display, and he asked for some things for that. But most of the things are just things that people bring in or that we had that were left over from various things that have gone on in our town, like ledgers. We have a lot of ledgers. We don't have them all out, but we have a lot of ledgers, the city ledgers that show when the streets were paved. We have the college ledger that shows when the money, I don't know if you know that during the Bowdon College era was when, and after the war between the states, that was the first GI Bill of sorts. And we had soldiers who came there and lived in the town with the various people and attended Bowdon College. Well, the president was Richardson, and he had a ledger. And so he has written into this ledger that the state was withdrawing the funding and what it was going to do to the college for those to leave. So we have the ledger open to that page. So that's pretty significant. That's 1860s. Absolutely. So we have some things like that. We have the minutes, the ledger that had the minutes from the Bowdon Railway. Bowdon Railway started in 1910. So we have that open to some pages where people can read, so some stuff like that.
Before I'm really going to delve into what you guys have and what you've collected, but how about the storage for this? I mean, you've been collecting for, what, 10, 15 years? And where are you
About
putting
20 years probably. We had storage in an old schoolroom that the city let us use. We had it in my wife's parents' old house that no one lived in. We've had it in
Got to maintain the
warehouses.
temperature and air conditioning and everything.
No, we don't have that.
That luxury.
We don't have that luxury. So we've been collecting. My mother was a historian in her own way, and she collected things from Bowdon, and we have a lot of those things. But a lot of people have come in and have given us things. When they see what we're doing and what we're trying to do, they think, well, this is one way to preserve what I've got. So we've got a lot of things from people who've just been nice enough to contribute them.
Speaking with members of the Bowdon Area Historical Society this morning on the Community Voice program, they're going to open up a brand new museum on Tuesday. And typically, I believe the museum, it won't be regular hours. You'll have to set an appointment and things like that. But for Tuesday, you guys do plan to have it open all day as a public house?
Starting at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Ribbon cutting will be at 5 o'clock.
Okay, and what's the location?
The Bowdon Historical Society is located behind Ava Sewell Hall on Bowdon High School campus. And we have this old church building is the museum. Behind the museum is McDaniel Hall, which is a meeting area, and it is also a part of our museum. And behind that is the old cemetery. Now, this church was actually, the church site was the church for Bowdon College. So it has a historical significance there. And on the campus, we have rebuilt the old Shellnut House, which is a dog trot house that was built in 1837 and was in Bowdon when I was growing up, and it was moved to that campus. So that is a part of our museum, as well as the Kent House, which is a shotgun house, and those have period furniture that Jim and Judy and others have established. And it's going to all be open this Tuesday.
Things like the shotgun houses are kind of making a comeback. The small houses anyway, but I don't know if they're doing it that same style where you can see through the front, through the back, but the small houses are making a comeback. You'd mentioned Sewell and Shellnut, and those are names significant in the history of Bowdon. What families and what characters will be reflected in this museum, just to start out with? I'm sure you'll change it as time goes on.
Well, obviously in the college exhibit, we'll be talking about the McDaniels and the Richardsons and the Loverns, because those were instrumental in setting up the college in the first place and maintaining it through the years where the other buildings were added. So that's definitely there. We have the full array of doctors' pictures that were on display at the old Bowdon Hospital. So we have lots of doctors, and of course the big name in Bowdon history is Dr. Lovern. He was a remarkable man. For people who are familiar with Bowdon, it's the big white house at the stoplight. And he was just something else. He was a pharmacist, he was a doctor, he started the oil mills, his finger was in, he started the railroad. He was just a remarkable man. So we have a lot of things about him. We have, those would be the big names. And of course, Mr. Witt, Jim would want to talk about L.E. Witt.
Yeah, we'll hang on to that one because that's part of the military part of the thing. We'll talk about that after we take our first break. But also, I believe, talking with you guys previously, the Bowdon namesake actually is an Alabamian, right?
Correct.
That's correct.
Is there any kind of tribute to him or recognition of him in there?
No. Well, of course, they thought Bowdon was a part of Alabama at that time. When the Treaty of Indian Springs took place in 1825, really that little section of Georgia was left out. So there was another treaty the next year that brought in Bowdon. And so that was an interesting part of our history also.
Well, I remember going to Bowdon just a few weeks after working here, so that must have been like 2008, 2009. And I definitely had that vibe of this, it's a historical place, and they take a lot of pride in it. I think it was the meeting place. It was the first time I'd ever gone to Bowdon. I think George Chambers had a speaking event there as the commissioner. And you'd mentioned the pictures of all the doctors. Weren't they in the meeting place at
Yes,
one point?
they were.
Weren't they around the wall?
When the hospital closed, Jim Watts was responsible for saving all those pictures for us, and he brought them to us, and we have them displayed. Had them then, and we took them down. Now we have them up again.
Okay. Well,
and he also saved the operating table from the old Bowdon Hospital. We have it there. It's a gigantic thing that weighs a ton on a marble base, and certainly reflects the obesity epidemic in our country. We all wonder if we could stay on that table. It is so small. We have a number of things from the doctors there. I think we have a bag from almost all of the doctors that are on that wall, which is a lot.
How about any journals? Are there any journals from influential people in Bowdon? Because it's always interesting to see those personalities. I like the kind of the docudramas and things that come out that are based on those journals. Do we have any characters that had left behind their journals?
And we have several books that were written by people that here. Judy Rowell and Mignon Wessinger wrote a book about Bowdon College, for example, and that's displayed there, as well as Mr. Barra, Bill Barra, wrote a book about the military, the Civil War military history of Bowdon, and of course Colonel McDaniel, who was is buried behind the Historical Society building, and he was killed in 1862 in Perryville, Kentucky, and his body was brought back to Bowdon and is buried there. And there are a lot of McDaniel relatives still here, and they've been very, very supportive of the Historical Society with their money and time.
We're going to take our break here, and we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the military exhibits that you guys will have set up. We're speaking with representatives of the Bowdon Area Historical Society, and they're going to open up their new museum on Tuesday. Ribbon cutting at 5 o'clock. It's Tuesday, July the 11th. Ribbon cutting will be at 5 o'clock, and the whole public, everybody in our who can hear us this morning, invited to attend that, and hope it's a big crowd, and hope you have to stay out in line for hours to get in. Any kind of refreshments or anything like that?
We'll
bring wafers.
Yeah, we will follow the meeting with our covered dish dinner. That is not to be missed.
We'll
follow
the public's invited to that covered dish dinner at 6:30, and then we have a speaker at 7 o'clock.
Very nice. We'll take our first break here. Community Voice, brought to you by Tanner Health System here on News Talk 1330 WLBB. Also streaming live on Facebook Live. More after this.
In sports, when you play to win, you get your game on. Shouldn't the same be true when it comes to your health? At Tanner Health System, we're going to help you get your healthy on. Tanner is leading the way for you to eat better, get fit, manage or prevent diabetes, and live tobacco-free, so you and your family can get your healthy on every day. It all starts at GetHealthyLiveWell.org. Check out upcoming healthy living events and join others in the community taking action to live well every day. GetHealthyLiveWell.org. Tanner Health System's way of helping you get your healthy on.
Need motivation and support to eat healthier, become more physically active, or quit tobacco? Tanner offers free classes to help you get your healthy on. Register today by calling 770-214-CARE. That's 770-214-CARE. Learn more at GetHealthyLiveWell.org.
Hey, welcome back to the WLVB Community Voice program. Our show brought to you by Tanner Health System. I'm your host this morning, Colin Worthington, 8:44, just about 15 minutes before 9 o'clock. Stay tuned for national news at the top of the hour, local news 9:02, and then Glenn Beck is on the air till 12 o'clock noon today. Right now we're talking about a new museum that's going to open up in Bowdon on Tuesday, July the 11th. Ribbon cutting at 5 o'clock, 5:30, they say?
Correct.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, and it is put together by the Bowdon Area Historical Society. Our guest this morning, Jim and Judy Rowell, and they're curators, although they think that's too big of a title for them, but they're the ones who have collected a lot of this stuff over the years. And Tom Upchurch is president of the Historical Society. All three of them good heads on their shoulders to remember all this information and to talk about it this morning. And appreciate you guys coming out. Let's talk about, I think there's 5 permanent displays that you're going to have when you're starting out, 5 permanent and maybe a handful.
I think there's 7.
7 permanent displays. When we talk a little bit about them, but and Tom's touched on it a little bit about the military. Very special Bowdonian native Bowdon man who served in World War II, or was that World War I?
World War II. Colonel Witt, Jim can tell you all about his Colonel Witt's history as well as the whole military display which he's put together for us.
We have Colonel Witt flew more missions than any other pilot during the Second World War. Not too long before he passed away, he got a letter from the Pentagon confirming that. It took them a little while to get it to him, but they did. He flew 326 missions, which is just an amazing number of missions. He was ace. He was credited with destroying a Japanese destroyer totally by himself with his P-38 that he flew. So we have his uniforms. We have a replica of his airplane that he flew. Excuse me. He was really a fantastic person, and he has a lot to tell. We have a good bit of his stuff. Now, his brother was a CB, and we have his uniform and some CB information that we had about that, where he was in the Marianas, and then I have an uncle who flew B-17s with the 8th Air Force, and we have his flight jacket, a lot of his memorabilia from there. He was an amateur photographer, and he took pictures from the cockpit of his B-17. So we have pictures that he took from it. We have lots of World War I people from Bowdon. And what we've tried to do with the museum is make sure this is representative of the Bowdon area. And these are all people that were, contributed to Bowdon and were community members. So we're proud to have this information. We're proud to show it. We have uniforms from every war, I think, except maybe the Korean War and the First World War. In First World War, uniforms are real hard.
You have a top coat from First World War, don't you?
No, that's the second. That was.
We have pictures from First
We have a top coat that Judge Brown had from World War II. So that was given to us.
Was there any conversation with Witt that you guys are aware of on why he, I don't say when was he allowed to go, 300 plus flights, or why he wanted to? Was there,
Well, one thing is there were lots of men there that were married and had children, and when it came time for him to rotate back to the U.S., he would say, let so and so go in my place, and he did that. So he stayed there a lot more, because apparently I don't think he was married at the time. So he let these people who had new children go home and see their children and that
beautiful.
Kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's very nice.
he was a good guy.
You guys are going to try and touch on a lot of angles and bring in a lot of different people with the museum, different interests. How about, Bowdon has a nice sports history. Are you guys able to touch on that at all?
We're working on that now. We're just barely scrape the ground just a little bit.
What would be an example of something you'd be able to get?
Well, we go back to 1925 to Bowdon College, their first football team, and Bowdon College played places like Miami and actually beat the University of Miami. They played big schools. They played in Birmingham. They played the Marine Corps. They played it was amazing. Some of the schools, Rollins College, which is still in existence today.
Fred Rogers went there, didn't he? Mr. Rogers.
They played Rollins College. There was a football field across the street from where the college was, which is now the parking lot of Bowdon High School. And that was Jones Field. And then there was also a baseball field over there. And they had some huge crowds over there. And we have pictures of some of the old teams. We have rosters of the old teams.
Cheerleaders inside the gym, old gym.
Yeah, we have pictures of cheerleaders from the old gym. We've got a good bit of stuff, and we're working on that now.
The whole Bowdon College exhibit is really interesting. And they've done a great job pulling together photographs of the college, which was in existence from 1857 to 1936. In fact, we have diplomas from the last graduating class as well as earlier graduating classes that go back to the early 1900s and late 1800s.
How about some of those graduates, when you see their names on those diplomas? Have you able to track them down and maybe follow their history?
Well, in 2004, we had a joint reunion. West Georgia helped sponsor that reunion as a beginning to their centennial year. Mm-hmm. And we had a number of real graduates at that, but we've lost most of those now. But we got some history from them when we were doing that.
Before we take this break, how are you guys funding all this? Are you getting donations, financial donations? I know you're getting a lot of people passing along their, their artifacts and exhibits, but how about financial donations?
You want to speak to that, Tom?
We can always use money.
Well, of course, this museum, the latest rendition of it is primarily a grant from the Community Foundation of West Georgia. Right. Now, the addition to the building, McDaniel Hall, was a collection of local people and other people that had an interest in Bowdon that gave us the money to renovate that. Well over $200,000 went into that facility, and it's a beautiful facility. Mm-hmm. For example, one of the centerpieces of that is, I mentioned Dr. Lovern a few minutes ago, the old soda fountain in that drugstore in 1909 is a centerpiece of that. It's a beautiful piece, and I think there's other parts of that old drugstore that the Dobson family donated to us.
Well, we have to take one final break here. It is 8:52. I'll come back with about 6 minutes left in the program. So we speak to the Bowdon Area Historical Society about their new museum, which opens up on Tuesday. Ribbon cutting will be at 5 o'clock, and everybody invited to attend and check the place out. And definitely some place when you bring in your family from other places, a nice place to visit the friendly city of Bowdon and check out this museum. But you need to set an appointment. And how would people go about that in the future? How would they contact you to say, hey, we'd like to come in on that Saturday at 11:30 in the morning?
They would call our home. That is 258-3976. So they would call, or they can call our reservation center for McDaniel Hall for the Historical Society, which is Sharon Johnson's number, and I do not have that number. She makes our reservations for use of the facility. Maybe
you guys can get that on your Facebook or your website, something in the future. Yeah. And also, you guys are it's being operated by volunteers.
That's correct.
Right. So how about people to join in? Do they need to be a member of the Historical Society? They probably should have an interest in history.
We welcome volunteers that are interested in our local history. And that's certainly, as we have about 50 people that come to our meetings every month. So we have a sizable group of folks that are interested in our local history.
Okay. All right, we will take that break now and come back with about 5 minutes left in our program. Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System here on News Talk 1330 WLBB.
Take a walk toward healthy. Tanner Health System wants you to know that taking a brisk 30-minute walk 5 times a week is all it takes for most people to keep fit. Not only that, going for 30 can lower your blood pressure, cholesterol, and reduce your risk for heart disease and strokes. You experience these benefits even if you divide your time into 2 or 3 segments of 10 to 15 minutes a day. Even if you've been sedentary for years, you can start now. Going for 35 times a week has real health benefits. Don't think you can make it for 30 minutes? That's okay. You can work your way up as you get stronger.
Let your mouse do the walking online at www.gethealthylivewell.org. Tanner's go-to online destination for health tips, fitness tracking, healthy recipes, and more. Get inspired to get your healthy on at gethealthylivewell.org.
Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice Program. Our show brought to you by Tanner Health System. Hello to everybody as we stream live on Facebook Live this morning. Of course, we're on air AM 1330 and 105.3 FM, 106.3 FM. I should probably check that station out sometime. Hey, let me go to Facebook Live real quick. We've got a question about where is the museum located. They must have tuned in a little bit later. Just remind us where that is.
The physical address is 105 College View, but it's about behind Ava Sewell Hall on the Bowdon High School campus.
All right. We wouldn't be we'd be depriving a bit of the history if we didn't mention this. Bowdon obviously had played a big role in the textile history.
Yes.
The West Georgia celebrates and promotes plenty. I'm assuming some things will be in that museum.
Yes, and we will become an official part of the textile trail in September. We will be a spur since it follows 27. Kind of. So we'll be a spur, but we have lots of apparel industry history in Bowdon. I don't know if the general public knows that the top coat that Jimmy Carter wore in his inaugural parade was made in Bowdon. Johnny Huey cut it, and it was sewn there, and we have the picture of him in the parade. He donated a coat to Johnny in the last couple of years. We have that on display. We have Matt McCord has revitalized the area that was Lamar Manufacturing. He gave us some pieces of equipment. Robin Worley from Bremen and the guys up there, not just Robin, have been a great support, and they sent us a sewing machine. So we have a good many pieces in our little display there that highlights that apparel industry, and one of the most interesting parts about that to me is that the people who Mr. Sewell hired were basically working in the cotton fields, women especially. Mm-hmm. So it is the clear delineation of moving from agrarian to industrial. Mildred Brown, who died a couple of years ago at 102, was one of the very first employees. Her father had helped Mr. Sewell build the plant. He came out into the cotton field where she was picking cotton and said, "Stop, I have you a job." So she left the cotton field and went to the Sewell plant on the first day. So I think that's a great agrarian to industrial exhibit.
Absolutely.
We have some stories like that there. We have a little book that we're making that highlights some of the people who were important in the plants. Not everybody was important in the plants, but some that have been able to give us pictures. And we hope that people will come and bring us pictures, tell their stories, and we'll add pages to that book. The University of West Georgia Pub and Print has been a big partner in this, and they have printed lots of things for us and a lot of our signage, including that book.
Judy Rowell, Jim Rowell, Tom Upchurch, they're with the Bowdon Area Historical Society. Got about a minute left in the program, guys. Want to give a shout out for the time and the place and get some people to join the club.
We have the ribbon cutting for our museum at 5 o'clock next Tuesday afternoon, July 11th. And the museum will be open until 6:30, at which time everyone is invited to a covered dish dinner, after which we'll have a program. A speaker, and that'll be Jamil Zanaldine, who is the head of the Georgia Humanities, who's been a big supporter of us in this effort. In fact, the Bowdon Historical Society won the Governor's Award for the Humanities last year for an exhibit on our black history in Bowdon. And we've done a good job displaying that also.
Well, you guys have obviously done a lot of work on this and spent a lot of time putting this together, and I hope everybody appreciates it and gets a chance to go out and check it out.
Well, thank you for having us today.
Absolutely. Glad to do it. I was glad you guys came out this morning, and glad everybody listened to this morning to the Community Voice program. Also, watching us live on Facebook Live this morning. If you missed any of the program, we'll put it back in our podcast on our website, News Talk 1330. TannerHealthSociety.com. Have a great weekend.